One of the main reasons people tell me they don't want to leave a position outside of financial security is lack of clarity and confidence around what to do. This feeling can 100% be remedied if you are ready to do the work. There is no quick fix to finding a job or advancing in your career, but being strategic and doing the work will pay off. If you're ready to work, let's go. This is one episode in a 20-episode season designed to provide career foundations for experienced professionals. We are going to give you the tools to find clarity and confidence, help you with your resume, give you simple interview strategies, known job search strategies, negotiation tactics, and more, all with an experienced professional in mind. My name is Julia, and I'm the career strategist behind the Ride the Tide Collective podcast, where we equip ambitious professionals to strategize and take action to advance their career. Welcome, friends. This is episode 12 of our 20-episode season, and we are discussing my foolproof way to answer interview questions. Getting to the interview stage of the hiring process is a big deal. If you have an interview, it means the hiring manager or recruiter is confident that you can at least do the job. That's the good news. The interview is a time for you to share more detail about what they have already read on your resume. It's also a time for you to interview them. In a few episodes, I'll share the process I use to determine what questions to ask in an interview, so stay tuned for that. Finally, it's a time for the employer to make sure you are a good fit for the company, the team, and the manager. If you're wondering if you've ever been discriminated against in the interview process because they are trying to figure out if you are a quote-unquote good fit, I can pretty confidently say you probably have been, which is unfortunate and very difficult to prove unless the person interviewing you has made a blatant comment or offhand remark. This is the bad news about the hiring process and in-person interviews. This can also be a good thing for you because honestly, you don't want to work somewhere where you aren't wanted. But the fact that hiring discrimination still happens in 2020 blows my mind, but I guess shouldn't surprise me at this point. Chances are, if you interview with a panel or have multiple interviews throughout a day, your odds of discrimination will go down because more people will be speaking into the hiring process. This is a great bit of information to remember when you are going through your entire hiring and interview process. The more people involved in the decision, the better. If you only ever interview with one person, especially if it's a mid to large size company, that is definitely a red flag for me and something that I would want to ask some questions about regarding their hiring processes. But I digress. You are not here for a full interview lesson. You are here to learn how to answer interview questions. There are a lot of acronyms out there in the career world for answering an interview question, but the whole process, regardless of who you're talking to, can be summed up in 3 parts. What happened? What action did you take? And what were the results? Let's break it down. This process comes down to basic storytelling, but more concise. First, you need to describe what happened. You want to give your interviewer enough information so they understand the situation and context, but not so much information that you overwhelm them. You are painting a picture for them, not throwing paint at them. Then you need to talk about the action you took. This is where a lot of people go wrong. A good majority of people will focus on others in the situation that they are describing. Why you focus on others is something you definitely need to unpack for yourself. Most often, it's because we aren't confident enough in our role in the story, so we try to deflect onto others. But this is an interview, and it's supposed to be about you, not your coworker. Especially if you end up making your coworkers look better than you. Yes, this really happens, and it will kill your credibility and the hiring team's confidence in you as a candidate. Remember, if you made it to the interview, you are already qualified to be there. Finally, you need to discuss the results. This can be tricky because the results might be negative or not ideal. In these instances, you can talk about what you learned and what you would do different if you were in that situation again. Not all interview questions are created the same. This method of answering questions is best for questions that require you to provide an example, such as, tell me about your leadership style. How do you manage conflict within your team? Tell me about a time when you won over a client or customer. You'll notice with the first two questions, you can answer them hypothetically. For example, tell me about your leadership style. You might answer, my leadership style is collaborative and supportive. I make sure everyone on my team has a voice, and I meet with each person at least 1 to 2 times a month to ensure they have the support they need. On the surface, the answer to this question seems fine. You talked about your style and even mentioned how you met with your team. A better answer will provide that information and a tangible example of what this has looked like in your position. Here's another way to answer. My leadership style is collaborative and supportive. In our weekly team meetings, I send out the agenda in advance to give my team time to think through the topics and be prepared to share. This also allows them to ask questions in advance that I can answer during the meeting. My goal is to make sure everyone on the team has a voice and is heard, whether they want to vocalize in the meeting or not. I also make it a point to schedule at least 2 meetings per month with each member of my team, and more if they are in the middle of a big project and need additional support. These meetings are non-negotiable and considered unmovable on my calendar because I want my team to know they are important and valued. In those meetings, we discuss their current projects, what support they need, and address any concerns that need to be addressed. Most recently, I have compiled a set of questions I make sure to go through, which allows my team to be prepared when they meet with me. The answer to this question takes about a minute or so to answer versus the 10 seconds it took with the first answer. 1 to 2 minutes to answer a question is standard, and some answers can even go to 3 or 4 minutes if it's more complicated. But the difference between the answers is paramount. The first answer anyone could have said because it didn't have any specific information that set it apart. The second answer gave us a glimpse into who this person is as a manager and what's important to them. It's obvious by the language they use, they want their teams to succeed and do well. They are a supportive manager, but the answer doesn't suggest they micromanage. You also get a feeling that this person is likely organized and prepared since they sent out meeting agendas in advance and have a set of questions they go through with their team during meetings. The more pertinent details you can give a hiring manager, the more they can infer about who you are and your style. If every answer is generic and can be answered by anyone, you won't stand out. Let's look at another example. A common behavioral question that I have seen professionals struggle with is the tell me how you handle conflict. This question can be asked a few different ways, but they all want to know how you manage conflict in a work setting. The key here, and really with any answer, is to be honest, but not to throw up any red flags for the position. Here's a way I might answer a conflict question. When I started in my current role about 5 years ago, I inherited a team that was very close and loyal to their previous manager. I knew going into that role I would have to win people over, and I was prepared for that challenge. However, I had one team member who couldn't get past the leadership change. There was an incident in which they inappropriately confronted me in a team meeting about a new project. While I felt attacked in the meeting, I knew confronting it in the moment wasn't what would work best for the team as a whole. I thanked the team member for their feedback and told them I'd be scheduling a follow-up meeting to discuss their concerns further. We met the next day because I knew we both needed time to cool off, and we discussed the incident in detail. I made sure to share how their words and actions impacted me and the impact that it could have on the team. They shared that they didn't like my leadership style and the changes I was making to the team. I validated their feelings, but also shared that my role for this team is to move them forward. I worked with this member intentionally for about a month, meeting regularly, asking questions, and sharing information with them about why we were going in the direction we were going in before they decided to move on to another role. It was obvious that I wasn't a good fit for them as a manager, but I also believe I took all the steps necessary to help them acclimate to the leadership change. Conflict is never easy, especially when you're in a management position, but I make it a priority to ensure my team is heard and any conflict, whether with myself or another team member, is dealt with swiftly. Again, this answer is a little bit longer, but that's to be expected when you're telling a story. If you go back to our 3 questions that need to be answered, we described what happened, but we didn't get so detailed that we got lost in the story. We described the action that the manager took, which included some great insight into their emotional intelligence. And finally, we shared the result, which was the team member leaving the role. While this may seem like a bad outcome, the story that led us there informs us that the manager did what they could to keep this person. Sometimes people aren't a good fit, and this was an example. Obviously, I made up this answer, but I want you to start outlining your own career stories so that you will be confident in how you articulate situations. When we are prepared to answer these types of questions, we can be more succinct and intentional with our words, which will make you stand out as a candidate. Professionals who don't prepare their stories either word vomit their experience and make themselves sound worse than they are, or they don't give enough information and undervalue what they bring to the table. Your action from this episode is to outline 4 to 5 significant stories from your career that could be used to answer multiple interview questions. These stories should be impactful, include other people, have results, positive or negative, and in some cases include a transformation or clear articulation of who you are as a professional. If you have any questions or want me to talk through answers to other interview questions, please send me a DM on Instagram or message me on LinkedIn, and I can do a short video about that specific question.